There you go.
Cool.
Got you. We're live.
So, thank you, one, Ed, for coming in
Thank you, Pat.
and applying. We represent 3 of the 4 owners of Equity Media, with Wendell being able to, he's our 4th member and he's in London right now. So, just to give you a very quick snapshot, we are still in the process of getting our FCC approval. So we don't technically own the station at this point in time, but we are planning and preparing
Sure.
for that. The current general manager has chosen not to continue once the radio station transitions.
Right.
So we are in the process of, we want a general manager identified, even though we're not exactly certain of when the job would actually commence, because we're not sure how long the FCC is going to take. Should you be successful next week, well, we thought it was next week until Cleveland just told us we may have to change the schedule a little bit, but we were hoping soon to identify our program director as well, and we would love to have our general manager be part of that selection process, obviously. So with that, listen, we just want you to be candid. Feel free to ask us questions. We've got a few for you.
Sure.
And we'll just kind of go from there. But first, I would just ask you to just as though we don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I like to tell people I'm just a country boy from North Louisiana that
All right.
does the best he can with what he's got. And
Okay.
God has been real good to me. I grew up in North Louisiana, but I call Lafayette home for the most part. But my first job actually was at the radio station in Tallulah, Louisiana. That was, and that was back in, it wasn't still considered segregated, but it was a unusual thing to have an African American teen, doing some
This
news
is a
and this was
African American station?
no, it was that's why I still love country music. It was a country station in
Oh, wow.
Tallulah. So that's where I got my teeth cut, if you will. And then, of course, I went off to Southern University when I graduated from high school, and graduated with honors. And one of my professors wanted me to go to LSU, and then so Southern had always been a place that my sister went and whatever. So, but I always felt it at that time, and I still do, that we need to support those kinds of. So I decided I was going to go to Southern, but at that time it was pretty cool because you could also take courses at LSU. I don't know if they still do it now. So I took a number of my courses at LSU, but I was actually registered at Southern, so I was able to graduate in 3 years. Looking back, I won't do that again because I ended up missing a whole lot of the collegiate. But I've always been a very driven person. So at 19 and a half, I was out actually working in a newspaper in New Iberia, Louisiana, and worked there for about 3 months. And I told about 4.5 months, and I learned everything from. And they weren't accustomed, because this is dating myself now. This was a while back, so I had met with the manager there off-site, and he had hired me off-site. So when I got to the station, to the newspaper, the lady was talking, blah, 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 and she said, "Can I have you?" I said, "I'm here to see Mr. Jim Wynn." And she said, "Well, what's your name?" I said, "Ed Marshall." She said, "You're Ed Marshall?" Because I didn't have one of those names that kind of rang out. So of course the buzz was Ed Marshall was this black guy. But it turned out to be a great opportunity. I was the only African. Well, there was a lady that did the social page, but she wasn't actually on staff. So I was the first actual news reporter at the Daily Iberian newspaper, and had a great time. The folks embraced me there, and I covered Acadiana, covering a lot of the night stuff, the council meetings and all that. So I got just to really, not only just write, but also to know how to put a paper together and pictures and back in the day when you did it all. So and you keep that kind of stuff. I know I run a whole press if I have to, the whole 9 yards. And while I was out covering a story one day, the assistant news director from KLFY was there, and because it was a big time situation, it was a pretty ugly murder place. And so they came up to me and said, we're going to read the articles, and said, have you ever thought about television? And I said, well, actually, my mind is in broadcasting, and I've done some, at school. So they said, why don't you come up for a news check? And so I went up and did my thing, and the next week they called and said, we want you to start working at Channel 10. So I did weekend anchor, and I did reporting, and the whole 9 yards. And my first story of my assignment, and I'll move on very quickly, was my news director said, because at that time you're still nervous and all this. She said, so we're going to go out. She said, this guy's, don't worry about it. He's a pretty cool guy, blah, blah, blah. And I was just writing all my stuff down. The cameraman was waiting. And then I was like, oh, I forgot to ask her who he is. I said, who is he? She says, Governor Edwards. So my first interview was with Governor Edwin Edwards.
Sorry, Jeff.
And when I saw him, he was at the Jefferson Performing Arts Theater about 6-7 months ago. I'm on that board now. And I reminded him of that. And we chuckled and had a good time. But I worked there for a very long time. Most of the time, people come into small stations because they want to get somewhere else. But our general manager was a tough cookie, and I learned a lot from him. He basically knew that most people watch TV for certain people. Those anchor people, those reporters that have got the special skills and who love the area. And he actually paid us what they paid him in Baton Rouge. So I stayed there, met my wife at a city council meeting, and and Lafayette just became home. And they gave me an assignment that I really didn't want. They wanted me to be the consumer reporter, with this show called Contact 10, where I could go out and solve problems for folks and all this stuff. And I was like, this is all legal, this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I said, we've looked at you're doing it because we know you're going to do it well. So I took the reins of it. And little did I know it made me one of the #1 people in the market.
Right.
And so our consultant came to me because I was getting ready to go to WBRZ because they had offered me a job, and then well, that's a whole another story with the guy who was the news director. He used to throw typewriters and all that stuff. But at any rate, he said, you should not leave. I said, why? He said, because they haven't told you the whole story. You are the #1 rated person in Acadia Island. And that, I was like, because of what you do. And he said, it comes across sincerely. The guy at the other station tried to compete with me, but people know real people. And this story is what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to get into where I am now. The sheriff of Acadia Parish, which is proudly in that area, he came up by the station one day, and he said, told the news director, he said, and Tom Pierce, the general manager, he said, I need to tell you about somebody at Marshall. So I said, okay, and brought me into the conference room. Like, what the heck with the sheriff? I haven't gotten a ticket in Acadia Parish. He said, we had a guy. He said, he said, the guy's a nice guy. He said, but he's as prejudiced as all out. He said, this guy he's horrible. And he said, somebody was breaking in his barn, and he said, called up and said, Sheriff, because he got the sheriff's home number, of course, because he was a big guy. He said, I want somebody to come, somebody's breaking in my barn, send me a sheriff's deputy, and don't send me an in. I mean, the word, He says, well, I got to send you whoever's on duty. He says, I'm telling you, don't send me an in out here. I don't want none of them on my property. Call back again. The guy is still in my barn. I'm going to shoot him or something. Don't send me an in out here. He said, that's who I got. And so he said, look, I'm telling you this. If you don't do what I say, and you don't send me a white sheriff deputy, I'm going to call Ed Marshall. So that told me then that when people are in need, it goes beyond, the color barrier. And that's true. I mean, the sheriff came to tell us that. And so that did a lot. And I worked very hard at that program. And it's true story.
That's funny.
And, that whole area taught me so much. And BRZ, I turned them down because I liked where I was. We had all the stuff that, and when I told the guy how much we were making there, he told me that Tom Pierce was a fool, and I didn't believe it. So I brought him my check stuff. He was like, he's crazy, he's out of his mind, but he knew the formula. And that's why I went to the whole idea of a general manager. I learned from general managers who were really smart, who sat back, observed people, knew what his market wanted. He knew what his people wanted and what kind of issues they were dealing with. And I was there for quite a while. Got married, had a baby. Cleveland has his baby. And TV is a tough business, you know, whether it's a small market or a large market, you know. And I also did work, I forgot to tell you, in Baton Rouge when I was in college. So that was my TV experience over at Channel 33, which was the NBC affiliate. So I had some TV experience working there. But moving fast forward, after I got, you know, my family, you know, I had the world on, you know, they had the clothing allowance, the whole business. I mean, I had a company car, all that good stuff. But I was not seeing my family. I was like, this is crazy. I would leave home, my daughter was asleep, come back, she was asleep, and it was not good for my you know, for my relationship with my wife either. So, and you know, the public sees it's great, and then when we go out places, of course, everybody wants to say, and that's a great thing, but you know, your family kind of gets lost. So I was visiting with David Sweat, who was the president of First National Bank of Lafayette. And I said, David, we were playing tennis, and I was like, David, I said, you know, I really, you know, I need to do something else. Because, you know, I knew it was time to do something else. When I got home, my daughter came up to me, she said, I want you to see my daddy. And she pointed to me on TV. And that was like, it hit me in the gut. I was like, this is not good. Because here I am live, but all she recognizes is the guy on TV. So, with that being said, David said, well, I'm going to tell the folks in New Orleans about you. They're looking for a guy down there. They're not looking for a spin doctor. They're looking for a journalist. I said, okay. I forgot about it. 2 weeks later, they called and said, we want you to come to New Orleans for an interview. And I was like, okay. We set it up, and then the jailbreak in, I forgot, the federal place down there. We had the big prison break, so everybody would be on duty. And of course, I was on duty when when we settled the whole thing. And so I said, had to cancel it. And so they said, we'll set it up again. And then so we set up another date, and then the Chamber of Commerce notified me that they were going to have elections that day. I was like, if I tell these people this again, they're going to fire me. They won't have a time to fire me. They're not going to hire me down there. I said, who is this guy? So long story short, I said, I can't do it this day because I've just been informed they're going to swear us in this day. And even though we had a black president of the council, I was the first black to be elected from an almost all-white district. And that was significant, and that meant stuff to my ancestors. So I was like, I got to do this. So long story short, we did that. So finally they said, if you can't come to us, we're going to come to you. And I was like, this is not happening. But I tell people, you seek the higher power on something, it happens. So the assistant to Ian Arnoff, who y'all remember from First Commerce, he flew down and met me at the Hilton in Lafayette. We talked, and my wife and I prayed about it, and we moved to New Orleans. And that's how I got here, because I knew then that was something to be done. Got here, got my feet wet. Ian Arnoff was ahead of his time, because he was a Jewish guy, but he really was trying to get blacks and women and into other areas of the bank. And so I have been, and from what I understand, I'm the only African American that's been a PR director, a senior vice president, PR director for a multi-billion-dollar bank in the history of Louisiana, which is pretty significant for a guy who came from those sharecroppers peoples, my ancestors in Toledo, Louisiana, So, my mom was the guy who would walk around with the newspaper. She said, well, Ed, I heard Ed. She said, I just happen to have this newspaper. She got this big paper, it's all, But that meant a lot, because, you want folks to know that you're doing well, and that you're doing well, not for yourself, just for yourself, but for people that you come, and also for the people here. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up about me, because I know I'm going on too long, but I gotta tell you another really good story, and then I'm done. This was we were getting ready to change the name of the company, because we had 5 banks around the state, as you all know, and we wanted one name. So we were in there really struggling with this, and we were told nobody was to be disturbed unless it was Ian Arnoff or somebody's family was sick. That was it. So we get this knock on the door, and and so Jane says, she says, Ed has a phone call. He really needs to take this phone call. And so I said, he's not taking any calls. If it's not from Ian, if it's not from his wife, whatever. He said, he's got it. He said, who is it? He said, it's the governor. So, so I knew it couldn't have been anything bad. So we put him on the speakerphone. It was Governor Roman says, Ed, how are you? I understand you've escaped in New Orleans, down there with Ian Aronoff and the big shots. He said, I'm gonna host a I've been asked to do the first state TV talk show around the state, and I want you to host it, call me. Well, word went through the bank, and so they soon discovered that I was not just this little black guy that they brought in. And that helped in terms of me getting accustomed to the city and all that kind of thing. So I'll say that to say, after that, I got a chance to meet a lot of the movers and the shakers and all that in the city. And of course, you all know I worked in banking from 91 until 2 years ago, between the banks. And, really tough situation to have with the new First NBC. And that's unfortunate. But I learned the ropes. I also did things that people don't know about me. I did business development as well. So I did private banking, where I was actually the banker for some of the wealthiest people in this city. Some people who, names we brought up earlier, that I was affiliated with. So I got a chance to know those folks, really kind of know where the minds are, and, know where they are in terms of the African-American community. Because, after a while you get around folks, you don't know, they start talking and they kind of, so that's how I got into real community service. I've worked community service all my life since I got here, and housing has been one of my biggest things. And of course, I had a show on WBOK for over 10 years. At noon every Monday, Money Talks with Ed Marshall on the radio, which I basically teased it on the TV show, so it worked out perfectly. And we actually had some white people who was calling in, and that goes to say, I want to tell you, if you market it right, they know where you are, they will tune in. So I was on there, and maybe y'all may not know this too, and I don't think the station, and I look back at some of my notes as being if I get chosen this job, it was not promoted. I actually got my credentials. I actually was one of the people, part of the press corps that covered President Obama's first inauguration. I got all my documents, all my papers, clearance and everything. And so I told, I think I was Cheryl there, I said, I am going to also not only cover it for the station, but I'm going to cover it for WBOK. I actually went live from Washington in the mall for WBOK when Barack Obama was being sworn in.
It was cold
This
that
is
day,
Ed Marshall, freezing. I had those warmers on, I still couldn't feel my hand. Reporting for WBOK and did the whole story. And you can check with Lee. Lee was my guy, and it was super, man. It was just great. I should have kept that, had to keep those tapes. But those were the kind of things. So I got a chance to be exposed to BOK from the front end in terms of being a host, and also seeing what goes on behind the scenes and as a client, so those were some pretty significant years. I'm gonna shut up and.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a lot of context.
You probably know more than you need to know about me.
Well, great. Well, I think we'll start with some questions now.
Sure, fire away.
And I'll start with the first one. So you have a lot of familiarity with the station. This ownership team has a plan of kind of reimagining the station. I guess the first question is, what do you see the role of the GM in a rebuilding of WBOK, and what do you think is the most important thing the GM role will be responsible for, and how would you kind of conceive the position that you were in?
Number one, GM role is always just like a news director role, everything. You got to bring in the money to keep the station on there. That's beyond all the other. You got to know that in the back of your mind. I know I've got the kind of contacts that I can help generate funds, and not just fun, but funds. You know you have the contacts in the community or whatever. But in terms of rebranding, and once you know that, once you got that key element that you know you got in your hip pocket, or my grandmama said, tied up in your bosom handkerchief, then you can go to work on how do you rebrand. And again, I was there for a number of years, and my perception is, and that's nothing against the former owner, but I think a lot of the branding at that time was, I think he wanted to kind of duplicate what he had done in California, and we're not that kind of city, we are a city that has problems and issues and racial problems. But our racial problems are mixed up and generated a whole different way, because the culture is a whole different thing, you know. And you got folks who are, you know, closely related along both sides of the fence. But that kind of thing didn't happen out where he was. So I think a lot of the programming was, I wouldn't say anti, because you have to have people who are going to pay for you to speak your piece, you know, and when you get to be a certain brand where people start, the perception from the community is, well, why am I going to advertise when these people are going to just kill me over there and not really give me a chance to know what my company does? I could use a perfect example. You know, First NBC was one of the top people for a long time, and you know, and when I first got there, the line was talking back, talking black, and you know, and every time I get the check from accounting, they would kind of circle that way, you know, and I knew it was going to finally feed up to Ashton. Like, well, why are we paying these people who are talking black and not talking to us or whatever, you know? And so before it got to that point, I went to Cheryl. I said, Cheryl, we really need to look at, you know, and I don't know if you all know, I was part of that conversation where they changed that part of that tag from talking back. Oh wait, it was
Talking back,
black,
talking
right. So they took the black thing off because, you know, you got people who are non-black who want to feed your station because they believe in what you're doing, but at the same time, you're cutting them in the back saying, yeah, but we don't want you to say nothing, and we don't want you to, you know, just give us your money,
Right.
you know, and that stopped happening. So I was a part of that process where that changed, and I'm happy to say that. So I say that to say that the branding there, I think, was a part of, you know, what his perception, what he lived. But we live a different kind of thing. And don't think we have to have people on all of the time being combative. And if you do have people on, and I say that to say, you know, we have to have people on who are grassroots people. But you have to selectively have grassroots people who truly are grassroots people and have a purpose and know how to express themselves on the airwaves. I tell people, everyone should have voice, but not everyone should have global voice. Because if we did, it's destructive. You know, and part of the station and TV station or whatever is to select those people who they know will bring balance. So, you know, when you look at rebranding, I would look at how do we brand this community where we all, you know, we're an urban station, and we know we've got issues in the urban community. We need to talk about those issues. We need to talk about how do we get, the core of what's happening in New Orleans is, at the end of the day, how do we get black folks jobs, meaningful jobs? How do we stop continually talking about getting all 1,500 jobs come in? Most of those jobs are going to be jobs where they're not getting a higher wage. How do we start talking to African-American young people who we claim are just criminally minded, and they aren't? How do we start telling them early and show them that you can be successful, like the guy that I'm talking to? And that takes the kind of thing where, because they listen to urban radio, and if you tell them things while they're listening to their, you know, whatever, and all this other stuff, it also gets in there. But we don't do that. So at the end of the day, the branding for me needs to be, we need to be about money and talking about how do we keep African American people employed in the city? How do we make sure that these kids are hearing the right things? And don't get me wrong, you need those kind of you know, those talk formats where people want to get in there and hear, you know, blah blah blah, call in and be angry and all that. But you've got to have somebody who can control that, you know, sitting at that mic. But that's my perception of where we need to go.
Right.
And also, when I see rebranding, we need to rebrand to the whole city, not just to the targeted black market. And because the market needs to be about change. And when you talk about financial change, and Caucasian people will buy advertising. If you're talking about constructive change, particular banks, because they want to be able to have, you know, I knew going in, They hadn't told me, but I'm not crazy. I was in banking 20 years. I knew part of my banking was gonna be part of our CRA record. So they wanted some good stuff, and I could put it in that file. If you don't believe me, listen to these tapes from WBOK, you know. And those are the kind of things where, you know, right now we let banks here run amok. They just basically say, no, I'm not gonna do that. You know, they're corporate big banks, and they say, well, we're into educate, blah, blah, blah. You know, how many people you know who are, other than people of, you know, of our financial place, or at White Linen Night. Now, you did a thing for White Linen Night where you combine blacks and whites, and it works. But when I'm talking about this, certain banks and stuff, when they do these events, and they cart that stuff in as CRA, and it's not, and it shouldn't even be accepted, you know, because they're doing something where it goes to all these charities. How many people say, well, how much did it go went to that charity from this White Linen Night, or from the Zoo to Do, you know? And basically, Zoo to Do is a very wealthy Caucasian event. You know, we're only there most of the time we're serving. And sometimes, I was on a board for the Louisiana State Museum, and we did the first museum on Mardi Gras, where you have Mardi Gras, you know, actually preserved and all that stuff. I was part of that. And I told the board, and I was very open, I said, if one person comes up to me and gives me a cup because I'm in a tuxedo, there's gonna be trouble here. I did. I said, because, you know, there are no people that look like me in here except for me and the people who are waiting staff. That should be unheard of in this day and time in New Orleans. You know, we have a population of very astute African Americans, and we should be a part of the process. You know, not where it's just some one person selected, and you know, and I've gone far beyond when I hear people say, well, you know, I'm a black person. That irritates me, because like, you're the black. Well, what about who are all these other people? You shouldn't just be the black. You know, I went to an event for one of the people who's running for re-election right now. And he was like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Said, are you having a good time? I said, yeah. I said, but there's just so many black people in here. Because I was the only one. So they were like, oh, you're a hoot. But, you know, it was the kind of thing where I wanted to send a message. I shouldn't be the only black person in this room.
Let me ask you another question. You mentioned the most.
Well, I'm sorry, but you know, like you, I tend to go on. I'm a frustrated actor.
You mentioned that the most important role of the general manager is to be accountable for the revenue. I just wrote down, like, get that money.
Right.
So, what do you think the financial performance of WBOK could be on an annual basis under your leadership as you are the GM?
WBOK is a gold mine because it is an urban. It's situated in people's minds as being an urban station. And if it's filtered right and factored right, these companies that have money will come. You know, if you do it, they will come. They will come if we know how to market to them, if we have to speak to them, you know.
So let's not say if. Let's say you're the guy.
Right.
So let's assume all those things are happening.
Okay.
What's our annual gross revenue under your leadership?
Well, I mean, I've got to take a look at what finances is, how much this whole thing will cost me. You know, I should do all that for some of the other businesses, but and then I can kind of give you that to say, you know, X number of dollars without seeing, you know, what's in the coffer now, what equipment we got to get, what we got to do to stay on the air, security, people, and all that. I got to have all those things in the pocket before I can give you a big number. You know, so that would be unfair for me to give you a number. And it might be higher or lower, you know. So I have to go and do my due diligence. You know, I've got to go in and actually do my due diligence of all these things that I need to factor in what's going on here, and then come back to my bosses and say, this is what I have, and is this different from you know, audit or whatever that you all seen from the past people, whatever. But that's how I would do that, and based on that, then I know what kind of revenue I would need to build, you know. And keep in mind, knowing that I've already come in here within my pocket, I've got so many people I already know that I can call on that are gonna truly make this, you know, gonna give me some money and make y'all smile.
So how much money would that generate in your mind?
I mean,
The people that you could call, that you
Okay.
know, that's in your pocket.
Mm-hmm. How much money they could,
Yeah.
per year they could generate?
Yeah.
Ah. And I'm being a figure of probably minimal. But I know each one could generate at least between 300, 400,000.
And how many are there?
For me, I know at least 10 that I know of right now.
So $3 to $4 million.
Yes. You know, and that's being, you know, very cautious, you know, because people don't understand the money is here, and we're not just talking about New Orleans. You're talking about, when you say urban market, you're talking about expansion into these other regions. You know, you've got these, you know, if you notice, a lot of the bigger companies now are not just in the city. You know, I'm talking about reaching out to people out in Mandeville, reaching out everywhere where they got ears. And trust me, even if they don't have ears for the urban market, if you do it right, they need to have that information in their file. Yeah.
Earlier you said you know what this market wants.
Mhm.
What is that?
What this market wants, I truly believe what this market wants is truth. This market wants to know truth about where we're going, particularly with our African-American young people, whether it's black people or white people. We need to know where we're going and how do we get there. And that's what this particular area doesn't, I don't see it wanting controversial issues every day, you know, where you've got people going rah, 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 you know, because that only lasts for so long. And at the end of the day, what did it produce? Probably nothing, you know. But at the end of the day, what people want is, how can I get a job? We're talking about, this is a time when people are looking for workforce. And that's what we need to be focused on. That's what people want, you know, whether they're black, white, whatever. At the end of the day, people want safety, they want low crime, they want a decent living, and they want decent housing, and they want to be able to basically raise their family in this culture that is so unique. We should not have people wanting to go out for Mardi Gras and afraid to go out because somebody may come up and shoot me. Because and I'm right on St. Charles. It used to be, well, don't worry about that because, you know, they only shoot down off Broad. Well, that ain't happening anymore. So people know, I mean, one of the things that most of the people I know who do a lot of advertising, right now they're concerned about is juvenile crime. They are really, because it's festering, because nothing is changing for them.
Yeah, I want to make sure you spend some time talking about the mechanics of the radio business. I know you've been in media, you've been a reporter and television. How much familiarity do you have in the radio business and the mechanics of radio, the running of radio operations, things like that?
Okay. It's the same kind of question that was put to me when I left television. And said, you know, what kind of experience do you have in doing work for banks? I said, a writer is a writer. I can write if I can write for, you know, for Henry's company, I can write for anybody. Same thing with operations. Because of the things I mentioned to you earlier, like with the general manager's experience, those kinds of things, I know what makes things run, you know. And I wasn't just in the bank. I mean, you know, I saw what things took to make bank operations. I knew what it took for back office to be able to process things, to get people's checks processed and all those kind of things. So I was like, you know, deep inside the bowels of the bank in terms of what was needed, what was ordered, what was necessary to keep operations going. So for the radio station, and when you talk about operations, you know, I'd have an operations manager, obviously, somebody who would help with that kind of thing. But I need to know, you know, what's going to keep us on the air. You know, we had so many times when I was there when equipment I came in, stuff was broken, or we were off the air. Those kind of things should even be a discussion. You know, it should not be happening. So, you know, a lot of and I know what equipment is needed for different things. You know, I can go in and order certain pieces, or when it's brought to me and say, well, it's going to cost X number of dollars for this particular suite, we set up like this. And I can go through these numbers and say, and then I also have radio contacts. Nobody operates alone in terms of what they do, even general managers. General managers talk to other general managers and say, you know, what did you pay for so-and-so? What is this costing you right now? And that's a part of the learning curve too. You know, if we ever get out of the mindset of, this is what's gonna cost us, you've gotta know other people in that business who also do what you do and who are not competing with you. If they're not competing with you, they're gonna tell you what they're doing. So, you know, I hope that kinda answers your question, because, there were a lot of things that went on the air that was, and behind the scenes. And I'll be perfectly honest, you know, I'm one of those people that puts a skunk on the table, and you know, I hope I'm not boring y'all, but I'm just telling you like it is. There was times when, you know, I would get a call and this person would say, can you possibly get the check to us this week, because I got people gotta get paid and all this kind of stuff. And I never wanna have that, and I know with the people around here, that would not be happening. But it was, so then you got the internal mindset of people who are there, who you're gonna keep. These people need to know that a comfortability that I don't need to worry about that anymore. It's no longer part of my job wondering if I'm gonna get my check, you know, and that's horrible. But that literally happened all the time. And and that was just, and I don't think it was a part of poor management locally. I think it was just, I don't know what, you know, I'm not disparaging the guy who had, but there was in the onset, that was, first of all, every bank, somebody, that we always have those funds that you pull on for different things. I don't think there were any emergency funds anywhere. I just think there was just, it was kind of just running amok, you know. But when you come into a facility and then there's no restroom working, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you know, this kind of thing, this just, you know. So anyway.
Tell me a little bit about your management style. What would they look like? Yeah.
Let me tell you, I tell people, nobody works harder than I do. But I'm not one of those people that leans on people and, you know, some people, they breed off of that, oh God, here comes so-and-so, he's such an A, you know. I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people who tell you, this is how we operate, you know, and this is what we do. And if we don't meet these goals, you're non-existent. Troy and Cleveland and the kid, y'all will be looking at me. You know, you don't care that lead intro work. You want to know what happened, and it's on my watch. So I tell people, what happens to me happens to you. My style is this. I always tell people, you know, when you need to do something and you have got a special emergency and we can cover you, go ahead on it. But I'll be damned when I need you and you can't be there for me. That is it, you know. You're gone, you know. There were times for the bank, you know, I tell people, they said, well, you know, something's coming up at my kid's school. Go out, take care of that. Because you can't change that. You know, she or he'll be 20 years old and say, well, when you weren't there for my parade. That's what kind of kid, that's what kids remember. You know, so you take care. But if we're gonna buy a bank, I damn sure want your butt. You can know that 24 hours, you better try to get a sit or something, because we gotta get this stuff out and it's gotta be done, because the next day, Ashton and I are gonna be looking at my black bond. So, you know, and if we can't do that right, bye. You know, so that's my style. I let people do their jobs, and if they don't, and don't get me wrong, I said let them, but I'm constantly watching their jobs. You know, see what's happening, what's being produced, what's not being produced, and you know, some people take that as a weakness, but I'm not one of those people who would just, you know, everything's gotta be, you know. Because people don't like operating and living with folks like that. Because after a while, they're gonna leave, you know. You've gotta be the kind of person who people can respect, and that's another thing. I don't believe in people disrespecting folks. You know, we can discuss, but you're not gonna have all these people coming hollering and carrying on. You got guests sitting out, and no, we're not having any of that. That kind of stuff doesn't happen, you know. There's gotta be an order and stuff. You know, I believe in protocol, you know. I certainly wouldn't, you know, if I know I've got the president coming to the station and none of y'all know he's coming, you know, and you got a lot of that happening.
Can you tell me a little bit about your management experience? I mean, like how many people you managed?
That's some water. I
That's
have
some water?
managed,
I do.
You want some?
I'm good. I have managed, it depends on what, like, I have managed people up to 20 to 25 people. I have managed, people up to like 3 people. You know, it depends on where I am. But my management style is always the same. Let's get the job done, let's do it right, and when the product comes out, you know. If Cleveland remembers, he come to our office, by everybody's door, I saw a sign saying it's showtime, you know, because that meant that we can bicker back here about this, who's not doing this, who's not doing the video work, who's not covering this, who's not doing this banking brochure right, blah, blah, blah. But we walk out that door to go see the folks across the street, we're on one accord, all the time, you know, all the time. So you don't have this kind of, you know, stuff going on. But that's you know, and I've managed a whole lot of folk. My only time I was ever, person didn't like me was because was a temp secretary. And I always, by the way, I always follow my gut too. My gut tells me what's going on. And I had 3 people in my department because, oh, she's really good, we should make her full-time. I said, guys, I'm not being disparaging, but usually when a person has been a temp for 10, 12 years, chances are,
Been 10 minutes since we.
and they kept on and on and on, and I said, you know what, I never give in to that. So I brought the lady in, I said, you know what, I said, you've been a temp, she says, well, no one's ever given me the right opportunity, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, look, I'm gonna give you an opportunity, 60 days, you know. And so I went to HR, and of course, she wanted to only work for me. She didn't want, after that, they said, well, she won't do this. I said, because you know why? This lady was a temp. Now you understand some of the problems that we inherited. So luckily, I mean, I'd given her so many days, so she had to go. But you can ask anyone who's ever worked, and I tell people, I'm careful about that now. Because sometimes when you say, you know, people work with me, not for me, some people take that too literal. And so sometimes you have to go back and tell them, damn it, you work for me. Because some people go crazy and say, well, when I work with, no, you worked for me. You know, because, you know, you gotta have the right mindset for people saying they work with me, you know. I don't play that. So that kind of gives you an idea. But I've managed people up to 25, 30 people. And on projects, I've managed more than that. It depends on the project. For example, when we were changing the name of the bank to, you know, your family of banks, I managed, what was it, 80 people in that process? And that was my baby, you know. So, and we got it done. And there was some spots in there where I had to pull some people out because they weren't being a team player, you know. And I even do, I'm also a speaker, so I do whole things on how to get people on the team and how to get rid of them and all this good stuff without getting sued. So that's also another process that, you know, y'all brought up. I want to make sure we have a good HR person in place who, you know, is getting real talent and not just folks, you know, somebody calls, well, you know, my daughter getting out of college. Well, you know, she might be getting out of college, she may not know what she's going to be doing. And we don't have time to you know, we train people by bringing them in as interns. We don't train them when we got to be ready and ready to go. Yeah.
Trey,
No, I think the main thing I was gonna just ask about is because you covered a lot in your discussion.
And I'm sorry, I tend not to be.
Yeah, very informative.
Yeah.
You're preempting a lot of our questions,
Oh,
so that's good. Culturally, what is the type of work environment and culture that you see in WBOK today, and what do you see in it with Ed Marshall as general manager?
As general manager, I see the culture being a culture internally, you're speaking of, and external.
Yes.
If we're gonna have, if we're gonna be partaking of funds, we need to also have some Caucasian people on staff, you know. You know, it kind of looks like, you know, and I'm not saying, and they may not necessarily be the salesperson for the white client. You know, there are a lot of white people, and particularly since this regentrification thing is happening, there are a lot of people who really want to get on board and who will call it out and say, you know, this is not right what y'all been doing to black folks down here. This is terrible. And I know of some people who moved in the neighborhoods who feel absolutely horrible now because they're like, this person next door to me who was so not, they couldn't afford them because I moved in here and I didn't know that was gonna happen, and this is, so you got
They
people.
didn't move though, did they?
Hmm?
No, I'm sorry.
No, they didn't move. They didn't move,
Right.
but because they had made this big plump investment of
I
money
get it, I get it.
from up north, so they can't.
I'm sorry. I said
No, but that's very real though.
Mhm.
But what I'm saying is, you do have people who have the frame of mind to say, you know what, we're screwing people.
Right.
And
I
some
get
of them are
it. Yeah.
speaking up.
Yeah.
Now, the majority aren't, you know. You got some folks who are saying, I'm tired of coming across that bridge, I'm tired of doing this, I need to be here, because this is where things happen.
Right.
You got that cluster.
Yeah.
And see, now that kind of stuff makes for a great blog, and it makes for a great kind of show where you deal with an issue of gentrification and all this stuff, how it's affecting the job market, and all. And everything I tie back to jobs, because I know when people got jobs, people don't go up and just break up and get in your house.
That's right.
I got my own TV. You
Right.
know, I don't need your TV.
That's right.
It's the truth.
That's right.
You know,
You're right.
but as long as we keep perpetuating this, oh, it is me kind of thing, and don't get me wrong, it kills me. I mean, nothing hurts me more than to see young black people who are truly don't feel there's anything there. And when I have people come up and say, well, you don't understand because you don't. No, I understand greatly. I was held up with a gun like this to my head, and the guy telling me, you can pray all you want, but I'm gonna kill you in, and he was in, okay? So don't come giving that crap about, I have not lived it, because I have lived it and almost died it. So I understand. But on the same token, I'm also on the other end where we get teen boys, you know, through the program that Kendall and I work with, just, you know, that basically doing our Bless 26 program, where you change lives. I got a young man, Carlin. Carlin is now a junior at Southern University. He's doing well. I mean, and he basically just, you know, these are not the kids that have been in trouble. They're not the kids who are the big stars. They're those in between, they can go either way. And I mean, you know, you affect lives. And he truly calls us, calls my wife, calls all, because we're part of his life now. You can affect change.
Thank you for that. Well, as we come up on time, we want to make sure we give you the floor, Ed, to ask any questions or questions you may have.
I do. Some of the questions, I think I kind of already thrown it out, you know, in terms of the ability to rebrand. I wanted to know, are you all looking at rebranding? Because that's one of the things that truly concern me.
Yes, we will be doing a top to bottom rebrand. It's gonna look different, it's gonna sound different, new visual identity, new tagline, new website, new,
Great.
yeah.
No personalities.
And then new
Before
programming,
and
new content,
after.
new
Okay.
programming.
Okay, and you know, are we gonna do focus groups to kind of find out what people want? You know, what people like, because there were some programs on the air that y'all knew that was just totally terrifying to me. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
So
Like
Just when you was on, Jeff.
Yeah, that's right. Talking about me.
that thing that I was for sure, I don't know about that
I
one.
get it, I get it.
And then we had people who call it, and by the way, also, we need and that's for the people on the air, you need a little button that can, you know,
Hang up on people?
no, but, you know, before people can curse or whatever, it can,
Oh, yeah.
because
Sure.
it is, oh my God.
We had that,
Yeah.
that FCC requires you.
They didn't have it on my show, I wish they had, they showed
Maybe they
it.
didn't teach you how to use it.
Yeah, right.
Well, I didn't tell Lee, because I was like,
Lee knows it? I was gonna say Lee, but go ahead, I'm
But
sorry.
it may not be 7 delay.
Yeah.
It may not have enough delay.
I mean, it wasn't enough delay, I mean, it was like,
It was live.
really bad.
Oh, really?
You know,
Wow.
You know, and also, I think, you know, there needs to be just, when you look at the program, just, you know, what is the market trying to tell us, you know, and as long as you answer the market as a station, it'll keep growing,
Yeah, we've engaged a researcher trying to give us some prices on focus groups.
Wonderful.
Those prices were quite expensive, so we made these
Yeah.
more informal focus groups with listeners and friends.
And if
things
I
like that.
might,